Good day. My name is Jim Chivers. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Gold & Company. We're a commercial real estate brokerage firm located here in Baltimore. This is called Interview with the CEO. A big thank you to Edwin Warfield, publisher of Citybiz, and his team for having us on today. And today I'm joined with owner of Charm City Builders, Tyler Banks. Tyler, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Tyler, you're a U.S. Marine veteran. You live in Baltimore. You have two boys, a very proud baseball dad that you are, and you started real estate around 2011. You got into real estate in 2011. You started Charm City Builders. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in real estate and when you started Charm City Builders.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had very humble beginnings, and I'd like to say that my inspiration definitely came when I was probably about 10, maybe 11 years old, and I realized that I hated being poor. And I had, like I said, very humble beginnings, and we were actually living in a camper that was parked outside of my uncle's house, and it was dilapidated and old. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is not how I want to live my life, and I need to do something about it. So I went on a mission, and it became, at a very young age, I started to learn discipline. And the one thing that I could control at that time was my physical health. I was kind of a chubby kid at that time as well. I didn't like that. And so what I did was I put myself on this disciplined regimen of physical fitness, push-ups, sit-ups. Herschel Walker was a huge fan of. I was a huge fan of Herschel Walker's at the time, and just hearing like he would do 1,000 push-ups a day. So I put myself on that regimen, and what I learned is I had this work ethic and drive and ambition at such a young age that I was going to employ that later on in life. I didn't know what it was going to be. I got into playing football. In high school, I played football. I gave it everything I got, committed myself to that, and that way of life of discipline and commitment to becoming great at something was something that I totally devoted myself to. When I graduated, I went to school for a little bit, and then I felt I stopped playing football and I needed something else, so I went in the Marine Corps, and it just kind of carried over that same philosophy of playing on a football team with discipline and commitment. The same attributes I learned in the Marines, I was able to carry that on, and I realized like I love this disciplined life and regimented life. But what I found was that I still didn't have money, and I needed to fix that problem that I felt at a young age and didn't want to experience later in life. So I started to buy and sell people's unwanted belongings. I couldn't afford real estate at the time, and this is my early 20s. I started to find people that needed to get rid of their personal contents. I would go to auctions, anywhere I could find it. I would get stuff, take it, and then sell it online or in consignment shops. And that gave me the same rush that I was getting from the team sports playing football, like scoring a touchdown or knocking somebody over on the football field. That rush I was able to get now in business by taking somebody's unwanted belongings and turning it into something good. So I became pretty good at doing that. It led to cars, and then from cars, I ultimately finally found somebody to sell me a property in Baltimore City and was able to convince them to finance it for me. So I had very little cash. I saved up, I think I had like $25,000, and I was able to manage somewhat of a decent project. It wasn't great, and I don't think I did that great, but it kind of, I caught the fever, so to speak, at that time. And so I was able to figure out how to get another house, and it led to another one. The market was great at the time, and that was kind of my springboard. And I was eventually able to use my VA loan to purchase a primary residence with like $1,500 down, and I flipped that and made like my typical. At the time I was thinking I was making like 50 grand a year working at a job, miserable, and I was like, man, I got to get into this full time. So that's what I ended up doing. Went in full force and bought I think 10 houses in a short period of time, and those 10 houses did. Probably half of them did really well, and then the other half tanked. But I caught the fever, and I was in it.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. And just a few years ago, you started an online real estate sales business and title company called Recstar. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys special in that business.
Yeah, Recstar was birthed out of a relationship that I bought a warehouse back in, I think, 2011. And the gentleman that was selling it was an auctioneer. And it was a smooth transaction. And it's actually the property on Crescent Street that we own now. And out of that relationship, we met a few times afterwards. The transaction on Crescent Street went really smooth. They liked the way that I operated, and we continued that conversation years following. And they had my partners that there's three other guys had an idea, and they thought that I would be a good partner to bring in. And we collaborated and came up with this concept of combining the best of brokerage and the best of the auction world, marrying the two together to create a platform where folks can sell their real estate agents. It benefits agents and their clients by bringing transparency and true competition to facilitate a sale in a way that is going to be beneficial for everybody. And so we launched about a year and a half ago successfully and have primarily sold mostly residential real estate on the site. And there's two different components. One's flex bid and the other is like pro bid. Pro bid's typically your investor type properties. They're as is, no contingencies. And then the flex bid is that product that marries brokerage, so you can put your contingencies in and everybody can see what the bids are to buy a house that, you or I might sell our personal house. I actually sold my personal house this way, and it was, really nice. And it drove the sale drove the price up basically to a place that was the highest in the neighborhood because, people were able to compete and they could see where they had to be in order to get it. So it's an exciting prop tech company that is growing pretty fast.
Good. Congratulations. And you and I have done some business together on the industrial real estate side, and we see the demand for industrial real estate in today's market. But for those that are holding unwanted residential or commercial real estate in today's market, what kind of advice can you give them in looking to sell?
That's a great question. So that's been kind of my focus in finding those folks, and really it's don't get overwhelmed in too many thoughts of down the line what needs to happen. It's kind of like take it into bite-sized pieces and deal with what you can control today. What action can I take right now? And if you're a person that really doesn't want to deal with negotiations on your own, or you don't even know the process, go get an agent or a broker to represent you. And in that process, just interview a few agents and find one that's going to listen to your story and listen versus like selling, and listen to what you have to say and what your concerns are, and let them, tell your story to why you have this property, you want to sell it, and what's important to you. That would be one way. And then if you want to go on your own and sell it to a guy like me direct, make sure you're vetting that person, asking them questions like, are you going to close on this property? A lot of times people are getting something under contract and then going to sell it to another investor before they even go to closing. So just kind of vet that person, figure out what they do and how they operate in business, and do it in bite-sized pieces, one day at a time. Don't think about getting to the settlement table. Just think about that one next thing.
Relationships, leading right into my next question. Relationships are very important in our line of business and play an impactful role in the transaction, from the brokerage community to lenders to partners or investors. But talk about the importance of relationships in the business of real estate.
Yeah, the importance of relationships are, in my opinion, is everything. And if you're not thinking about the other side of the transaction, you're probably not thinking about the long term. And if you're in this business like we are, every day we need to play good in the sandbox with everybody else. And so my goal oftentimes is the right people and treating them, making sure that they get what it is they feel is fair or reasonable, and then make sure they're taken care of. So, and with that mindset, you want to find other people that share that. And when you do, everything becomes a lot easier. And that's really what it's been about for me, is finding those right people and those right relationships. And once you do find those relationships, life becomes a lot easier. It's like, man, why did it have to be so hard? And it's usually some ego that is on one side of the transaction that causes friction and problems. And when you can get rid of that ego and have the right relationship, man, it's like just it sails along so much easier. So relationships are everything.
Great. So it's been a rocky couple years with rising costs and rents going up and low vacancy rates. But how has Charm City Builders adapted the past couple years during the pandemic?
Man, when things started to happen with COVID, I'm not gonna lie, I was really afraid. And I had this fear. I tightened everything up. I was like, we need to get rid of our office. As you can see, I'm here in my home, in my house. This is not some grandiose office. I got rid of every expense that I felt was unnecessary, which was a really good thing. And I just cut the fat and got way down to the essentials. And it was looking like I didn't know what we were going to do. I was trying to figure out how I could survive off of the passive income, hoping that people paid their rent, that I could survive off of that. And in fact, things changed and it exploded. Our business erupted. Like my buy, fix, and flip of residential real estate, that side of the business took off, and it did the opposite. But we tightened up our business and got real lean and smart about what was important. I got down to a place where it's like just way more efficient. And we just adapted and went out and made more virtual offers. We were like, people that were afraid to open up their doors, we're like, hey, we'll make an offer if you can send us some pictures. We figured out how to like navigate the process virtually. And I put a quick video out there. We made a commercial in my basement saying we're still buying houses and just send us pictures and we can make you an offer. So we shifted gears and figured out how to function that way. And it just worked. There was definitely a few months were a little scary, but then like I said, it took off. We did have some challenges, I'm not going to lie, in the space of the rentals where folks that were not good tenants took advantage of the situation and just didn't pay us. I think at one point we were owed about $100,000 from tenants that just weren't paying. But eventually we got out of that and we captured some of that money back through a couple different programs where the government stepped in and gave us some money. So that helped out. Wasn't expecting any help and got it where we least expected it.
Talk about some of the projects that you are currently working on in the Baltimore area.
Yeah, I have my core business has been the single family houses where I'm just acquiring, fixing them up, and then reselling them and or renting them out. But more recently in the last few years, I've gotten into the industrial market that I absolutely love. One of the projects is in Glen Burnie, 7930 Sully Road. I think, Jim, you know about that one pretty well. That property is 8 acres, heavy industrial zoning. There's like a office trailer on it, but it's just raw land. And what we're doing over there, we're cleaning it up, getting rid of any trash and weeds and things like that, bushes and trees, and clearing it out, putting gravel down, and we're going to use it for outside storage. We'll either sell it or we're going to lease it out to another business, hopefully. That's one project we're working on. Another one is on Highland Avenue, a mixed-use property. That property consists of the U.S. Post Office as a tenant, and then a few vacant commercial spaces. Above that, there's about 7 apartment units that we're fixing up and stabilizing that property, and then we'll reposition it either with a sale or potentially a refinance. I have a 30-unit apartment building over in East Baltimore that I'm selling and buying a building next to it that's 22 units. So those plays are just, I bought them. They were in dilapidated condition, and we're fixing them up and then putting good families and good tenants in there and then refinancing or selling.
You spend a lot of time in and out of the city in many, many different neighborhoods. So you're seeing a lot of the different areas. In your opinion, What can the city government do to help improve the city?
I would say one experience that I had in very close to the city, which was really, really good, in Dundalk, the Dundalk Renaissance Corporation was doing created a program for investor developers, and it was really good. At the time, the real estate deals didn't make sense in Dundalk. In the numbers we couldn't make them sense. The only way they worked were as rentals, and what they came up with was, I think was Bernie money, and I don't even know what that honestly stands for, but I can tell you what it did do is it made it easy, and they made it easy, and the numbers started to make sense. So I would buy a place and be all in on an investment of, call it $100,000 or $120,000. Well, you would set up for this subsidy, and it was really a simple process. I thought it was going to be cumbersome. I didn't expect that it would work. But you would go in and fill out an application on one page, what you're going to do to the property, the improvements that you're going to make, and then that you would have to give a buyer a certain amount of money towards the purchase, like $3,000 or $5,000, and then they would in turn give you $25,000 for making this investment at the end of the project once you submitted a settlement sheet. And I thought, because government was going to be involved, it's going to be a cumbersome bureaucratic process, and it was absolutely not that at all. It was so simple. Submitted the settlement sheet, and after the settlement sheet was given, I was given a check that day for $25,000. Well, that opened my eyes to want to buy in Dundalk, and this was a couple other guys knew about it. They started buying, and then the prices started jumping up, and all of a sudden families are moving in, and those houses that were 120 became 150, 160, 170, $200,000 now, and there's all types of investment going on in Dundalk for these houses. If the city could do something like that, in my opinion, and make it like so investors could make money, and not just like a little bit of money, like we were making 20, 25% on our money. And they were high-fiving us for putting together, bringing families in. And so it feels at times like you're not really wanted, even though the words might be, hey, we want you to invest in here. If you felt that, the action would be giving money, because a lot of deals don't make sense in Baltimore City. If you could find a way to give and make those deals make sense like they did in Dundalk, I think that would be a huge incentive to invest and put the risk that we have to put out there as investors and developers, and listen to us when we give suggestions on how to make it easier and less cumbersome on permitting, something as simple as permitting, and really do that, streamline that process to make it like, hey, you can pay extra money if you want this to be done in a certain period of time, and I think they would have to outsource that to the private sector, to develop that process. And I would imagine that would be a heavy lift to set that program up, but if you did it, it would be well received, I would say, by the investor developer community.
If you had that crystal ball, what does the future hold for Charm City Builders and Tyler Banks?
Yeah, good thing I don't have that crystal ball. But if I did, I think where I'm going is continue to acquire industrial, multifamily real estate, and do what we do really well, and that's make things simple. I don't like to over lawyer up. Sorry to my attorneys. I want things simple and really shake somebody's hand and get a deal done. Continue flipping houses like I'm doing, because that's bread and butter. It's just at this point it's easy for me, and that allows me to make the money to buy those larger investment properties. And so I just want to continue doing that, and just grow the portfolio. And focus on the things that I'm passionate about. That's the nonprofit that I started. That's the giving back, teaching. I'm involved in a few courses where I'm teaching real estate investment to beginners, and that always feels good, giving back. So that's kind of where my head is, like give back as much as I can, and focus on my family and build our portfolio up.
Great. That's great. Tyler, thank you so much for joining. Great to see you. Edwin Warfield, thank you, publisher of City Business, and his team, Kevin Parker, for having us on. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.